Have you noticed how your mind can't stop trying to make sense of things, no matter how random they are? A sound in the next room, a half-finished text, a strange coincidence. Your brain instantly starts building a story around it, as if chaos itself is unbearable without a plot. That habit feels small, but it might be the strangest thing about you, because in the future we're about to visit, countless alien civilizations have mastered physics, biology, faster than light communication, and yet they all kept failing at one simple, desperate task: making children together. Every cross-species hybrid body collapsed from the inside, as if life itself refused to share. They tried for thousands of years. Careful, patient, brilliant. Still, every mixed embryo pulled itself apart. Then humans showed up. Not as saviors, not as rulers, just as this odd little species obsessed with meaning. Unable to stop asking, what does this say about us? What's the pattern here? And in that future, someone finally notices a quiet horror and a quiet miracle. Human cells do the same thing as human minds. Faced with conflicting instructions, they refuse to quit. They keep trying to turn confusion into a story that can hold. That's where you come in tonight. You and I are going to drift beside an old alien scientist named Elya and a group of human visitors who think they're just there to help with routine genetics. We'll sit with them in the calm before a centuries-long crisis becomes visible, and we'll watch the first tiny experiment where human DNA does something no other life has ever done. It is late, and the stars feel very quiet. You are sitting in the dark with me, as if we share the same small room, even though this story takes place thousands of years ahead, far past our time. Ships move slowly between suns. Minds speak faster than light. Whole species drift across the galaxy, gentle and tired, trying to stay alive a little longer. For ages, they tried to mix their lives together, tried to join their bodies, their genes, their long memories, tried to make children who could survive in many places at once. Every attempt failed. Cells fought each other. Bodies formed and then fell apart. Then humans arrived. Not as heroes, not as masters, just as another strange species with too much love for stories, too much habit of turning random events into meaning. People who could not stop asking, what does this mean? Where is the pattern? No one knew that this habit lived not only in human minds, but also in human cells. You will move quietly beside those who find out. You will watch a calm crisis that lasted for centuries. You will see a child who is more than human and more than alien, and not less than either. And you will see how a simple thing, like a story, can hold life together when nothing else could. So lie back, breathe slowly, and let the future come to meet you, because tonight we are going to visit the empire that could not crossbreed. By the year 4200, the galaxy felt old and gentle. The Heliox Continuum wrapped around hundreds of stars like a loose ring, not a rule of force, more like a long, patient agreement between thousands of species who had learned slowly to stop hurting each other. They shared travel paths, safe zones around fragile worlds, and deep, soft tunnels in space-time where signals moved faster than light. A question asked near a quiet blue star could be answered near a yellow sun. Almost at once, bodies still had to move slowly, locked to the speed of engines. But thoughts did not. Earth had healed enough to join. The sky over San Juan held bright tiers of gardens, shallow pools, and long, soft wings of solar sails that shifted with the wind. The old city sat partly on land, partly on rounded ocean platforms that rose and sank with the tide. In Edinburgh, green walls climbed up old stone, and narrow streets had become gentle ramps for bikes, small carts, and moss-covered walkers. The air held salt and soil, not smoke. People still argued, still worried, still told long stories about past harm. But the planet had survived its rage. The ice sheets had settled. Forest had grown back in new shapes, mixed with glass towers and sky farms. Humanity was no longer alone. The Heliox Continuum had noticed Earth for simple reasons. A loud radio passed, a bright heat trail in infrared, chemistry that looked safe. When contact came, it was not dramatic. No invasion, no grand speech over all channels. Just a few visits, careful talks, slow trust. By the time the story begins, humans had held seats in small continuum meetings for almost a century. Young people on Earth grew up with alien toys in museums, with shared shows from distant worlds, with small exchange visits for science and art. Still, there were parts of the continuum that humans hardly knew. Far from Earth, near a pale blue star, a crystalline research habitat turned slowly in the dim light. Its walls were grown from smart, clear minerals that bent light into gentle colors. Corridors were not straight. They curved and branched like living glass roots, lined with soft handholds for many kinds of limbs and tendrils. And tendrils, Elya hung in one of those long halls, watching the slow drift of other bodies around her. Her own form was built for this place. 4 long, jointed limbs, skin that shimmered like oily water, a head lined with flexible frills that changed color with each emotion. Her species had joined the continuum long before humans had learned to shape metal. Elya was not young. She had watched stars age a little. She had watched many experiments that all failed in the same quiet way. That failure was the true center of the continuum's work. Every species in the Heliox Continuum had crossed great distances. Space flight and slow travel had spread them out, broken old breeding groups, made long gaps between colonies. Over time, that kind of life changed genomes. Each group lost small bits of variety. Some lines grew thin and weak. Some could no longer have children at all. The continuum had tried to fight this with careful storage of genetic material, seed vaults for life, safe breeding programs. But there was a deeper wish under all of that. A wish to share bodies as much as they shared ideas. If genes from many species could mix and survive, then new children would carry huge variety. They could live on cold rocks or warm moons. They could breathe methanes or oxygen or thin, strange airs. They would be living bridges between worlds. So the continuum had built places like Elya's habitat, calm, bright, full of tiny labs and warm nurseries. For thousands of years, they had tried to crossbreed. They had the tools. They could read genomes. Like music, they could move pieces of DNA around with almost no mistakes. They could grow test embryos in safe artificial wombs under any kind of gravity and light. Years. Still, every serious hybrid attempt failed. At first, the reason seemed simple. Most species had completely different biochemistry. Some used different amino acids. Some had extra base pairs. Some twisted their DNA in mirrored spirals. It was like trying to mix water and stone, so they focused on closer pairs. Species with similar bases. Similar protein shapes. Even similar body plans. It did not help much. What happened was always the same. Early cells accepted both sets of instructions. For a short time, everything looked fine. Then somewhere in the first weeks, quiet chaos began. In some embryos, cells started to grow, then stopped responding to signals. Parts that should become heart or lung refused to specialize. In others, too many instructions fought for control of the same tissue. Instead of building a stable organ, they built tangled sacks of half-finished forms. The continuum called it instruction conflict. The genes themselves were not damaged. Each set worked well on its own, but inside a shared cell, they could not agree on priorities, timing, or shape. It was like two leaders in a tiny town, giving orders that did not match. No amount of editing fixed this. Scientists tried to turn off large parts of one parent genome, leaving only a few helper sections active. They tried to build careful schedules, where some genes would only turn on after others had finished. They tweaked, adjusted, and smoothed for centuries. The bodies still collapsed. Some embryos lasted days. A few lasted weeks. Very rarely, a hybrid fetus reached a stage where it almost seemed viable. Each time, the continuum held its breath. Each time, something inside the forming body fell out of balance and growth stopped. Not with fire, not with pain, just with a slow fade as cells lost their sense of order and drifted apart. Elya had watched this process more times than she could count. She moved through records of past attempts as if walking past a long line of empty rooms. Each try had a name, a careful design, a kind of hope tied to it. Each try had ended under the same flat curve on a chart. So the continuum had learned to be very calm about sadness. They did not rush. They did not blame. They just kept studying. Humans entered this story in a small, almost boring way. At first, the continuum only sent simple invites. Send doctors. Send biologists. Send people who can look with fresh eyes. The language was formal. The offers talked about shared learning and joint research. There was no spoken promise of hybrids, no clear talk of the deeper project. Earth was cautious, but it was also very curious. So ships left Earth orbit, slow and safe. On board were doctors from Lagos, gene designers from Mumbai, quiet lab techs from Sao Paulo, students from Qingdao, and Nairobi and Vancouver. They did not think of themselves as heroes. They thought they were going to join big, careful studies about long-term health in space. You are riding along with them, a soft presence at their shoulders. When they arrive at the crystalline habitat, they float in air that smells faintly of minerals and plant oils. Light bends and breaks all around them. Their faces reflect in the walls, mixed with alien shapes. They feel small, but also strangely at home. Curiosity fits in any gravity. Elya comes to greet them, moving hand over hand along the rail. Her frills glow a gentle green, the color of welcome in her culture. She shifts into the trade language that almost every Continuum member knows, simple and smooth. She shows them around. Shared kitchens with many kinds of food, rest zones with soft nets and quiet dark corners. A hall where young aliens play in slow, drifting groups. Then she guides them to the deeper section. Here the air is warmer. Machines hum softly. You can feel that this place matters more. Here is our oldest work, Elya says, using the translators fixed near her throat. The words come out calm and steady. The work we have failed to finish. The human visitors look through clear walls into a long chamber of tiny growth pods. Inside, under soft shadows, clusters of cells divide and move. Some are single-species samples used for control tests. Others are complex mixes. To a simple eye, they all look the same. Small, pale, busy. Elya stays quiet for a few breaths. Then she begins to explain. Her voice stays low and gentle, as if trying not to wake the embryos. She tells them about migration and loss, how distance cut old breeding webs, how some lineages have lost entire sets of traits, how others now carry so many hidden weaknesses that nearly every child is born with trouble. She talks about hybrid attempts in careful, simple terms, about instruction conflict, about bodies that do not know which plan to follow. She does not guilt them. She does not flatter them. She just lays out the facts like stones. The humans listen. Some float with hands tucked behind their backs. Some hold the rails too tightly. You can feel their mixed feelings. Fear, guilt, even when they have done nothing wrong. A strange kind of honor that such old beings would trust them with this story. Then, Elya shows them something different. In one corner of the chamber, a separate pod holds a set of cells that look no more special than the rest. A furrowed, the timbered sex, but the tag in the system marks them as new. These, Elya says, are the first samples with your species material. Inside that small pod, human DNA is mixed with strands from a gentle aquatic species that lives in liquid methane. No one expects more from this try than from any other. It is a basic test, a check of reaction, not a brave attempt at a full child. Days pass in minutes as the record rushes forward. You watch cell counts, division rates, organization levels. You listen to the comments. Elias' team makes as they work. Something odd begins to show up in the data. These hybrid cells do not arrange themselves like standard embryos. Their early signals look messy, like someone tried to start 3 different kinds of body at once. But they do not fall apart. They do not stop responding to change. They do not drift into the flat, dull line that means death. They keep sorting themselves, testing new patterns. Over and over, they pull back from chaos and find a new form of order, even if it is not the final one. Look, one of Elya's assistants says in the recording, they keep reorganizing. They should have shut down by now. Elya rewinds that section for the human group, plays it again, lets them feel the shape of the curve. No other mix does this, she says softly. When instructions start to conflict, they simply stop. Your material does something else. It treats conflict like raw material. It keeps trying to make sense. A young human biologist from Accra squints at the data. Is it repair enzymes? They asked. Some kind of crazy proofreading? We checked, Elya answers. Her frills lift slightly, a sign of interest. The usual repair systems are active. Yes, but so are thousands of strange regulatory codes near your brain development genes. They behave as if they are trying to find a pattern that fits both sets of instructions at once. Silence hangs in the lab. Humans have carried their minds for a very long time. They know. They love stories, plots, meaning, but no one has ever seen that habit written so clearly into the body itself. Elya watches their faces. She does not say what she is already thinking. Not yet. She just adds, in a quiet tone, "This is why you are here. Not only for your thoughts, for your cells." The human visitors float in the dim light, hearts beating a little faster. You can feel their tension. Curiosity rises, but so does a thin line of fear. They have not yet seen the big picture. They have not yet learned how far the continuum is willing to go. That part comes later, after a leak, after a wave of outrage, after the truth has to stand in full light. For now, the empire that could not crossbreed has found a strange new tool. It looks, at first glance, like simple human DNA. At first, the invites from the Heliox Continuum felt like an honor. More human specialists were asked to join research teams. Grants flowed to universities in Lima, Nairobi, Seoul, Lagos, Toronto. Young students lined up for language tests and psych checks, hoping for a chance to work on the glittering habitats near strange stars. Official statements explain the same goals over and over. Long-term health in mixed gravity, stable food webs on ships, better ways to manage gene loss in small space colonies. All of that was true. It was just not the whole truth. Inside the crystalline habitat, projects grew out in steady rings around the first human hybrid experiments. Elya's team made tiny changes here and there. A gene this way, a signal that way. They watched how often the mixed cells could pull back from conflict and find a new stable state. The early results were careful, almost modest, but in the quiet, they were also huge. Every other hybrid line the Continuum had created either collapsed or had to be forced into a very narrow plan. Human mixes did not behave like that. They seemed to carry some hidden guide, some rule that said, "Do not stop. Try another pattern. See if this makes more sense." The continuum did not want to cause panic. Many species feared forced breeding. Old stories of conquest, the loss of control over their own bodies. Humans, with their long history of abuse in medicine and science, were even more sensitive. So the council chose a slow, half-open path. They told Earth's governments that new human studies would focus on deep regulatory systems and cross-species stability research. That was not a lie. It just did not say directly that the final goal was a living hybrid child on Earth. Debate still happened. City councils and regional parliaments argued late into the night. Ethics groups met in floating domes over Lagos, in deep meeting halls under Jakarta, in new coral towers near Honolulu. They read the Continuum's records that were open to the public and checked every line of every agreement. In the end, curiosity and hope won. Agreements were signed. All samples would be given with consent. All data would be shared. No full-scale hybrids would be grown without joint oversight. That last rule did not fit well with the speed of discovery. Elya and her team had already begun to push the limits, with small steps at first. Larger. Later, it was not greed. It was fear of time. In some sectors of the continuum, entire species were down to a few hundred fertile adults. Windows were closing. On the habitat, security was tight, but not cruel. Records had many layers of clearance. Most humans there still thought they were working on long-term gene health. Not full hybrids, but every tight system has some small gap. The gap here had a name: Rana Ishikawa, a young biosystems analyst from Kobe. Rana had bright, restless eyes and a habit of not stopping when told enough. They had grown up with stories of old data lies, deep cover-ups, and had promised themselves never to accept half-truths again. Rana worked in a side lab, checking simulation models of mixed gene networks. Their task seemed simple: stress test code, look for bugs, report stability scores. The files they were given had many parts blacked out or blurred. But Rana knew how to work around those blurs. Security on the habitat had been built for many species, most of whom did not think in human ways. They did not guess that a human mind might treat a redacted page like a puzzle to solve. Rana did. For weeks, Rana watched for small patterns. File sizes that did not match. Hash logs that hinted at hidden links. A strange kind of lag when certain directories loaded. Nothing big enough to scream secret, but enough to feel wrong. Curiosity for Rana was like thirst. Late in a quiet cycle, when most of the habitat drifted in rest, Rana stayed at a terminal cube, heart beating a little too fast. They opened a low-level system monitor, the sort most people never touched. With careful timing and a few simple tricks, they slipped past a guard process that had not been updated in decades. A new directory blooms into view. Inside, Rana found clean folders with simple names. Each contained full reports that matched the redacted ones in their daily work. But now, nothing was blacked out. There were thousands of them. Rana began to read. The reports did not start with humans. They reached back thousands of standard years to the earliest hybrid attempts. Species names Rana had never heard. Worlds long gone cold. Photos of early embryos that looked fragile and strange. Then came the graphs. Collapse curves, year after year. Century after century, all the same shape. A small rise of hope and then a drop. Over and over, Rana's throat tightened. The scale of the failure was hard to hold. Scrolling forward, the tone of the records shifted slightly when humans arrived. New colors marked human mixes on the charts. The same methods used on other species now gave different results. When human DNA entered, those collapse curves changed. They bent. Now Pi DNA entered. Those collapse curves changed. They bent nigh so flattened. Instead of dropping straight to zero, they wobbled. They caught. They tried new angles. Some still failed, but more and more held on. Near the end of the list, a set of files glowed with special tags. Extended integration trial. Inside were models of full hybrid fetuses, not just early stage embryos. Growth charts, tissue maps, brain development projections. Rana rocked back in the chair, heart pounding. This was not just theory. This was not just cell dishes and tiny clusters. The continuum was aiming for full living children. There was a part of Rana that understood the need, the long crisis, the thin lines of almost lost species. Another part felt raw anger rise, old scars from Earth's history, burned in memory, experiments without consent, bodies treated as tools. Rana did not send the files to any higher authority on the habitat. Trust did not run that deep. Yet, instead, they compressed the data into a tight bundle, sliced it into harmless-looking pieces, and attached each piece to routine logs meant for Earth. Security caught many strange things. It did not catch this. Weeks later, in a floating office in Quito, a tired data tech ran a standard merge on continuum logs and Earth backups. The strange pieces snapped back together like magnets. The hidden directory opened before any filter could block it. The tech stared, then called a supervisor. Within hours, a small group of global leaders and science chiefs crowded into secure rooms across the planet. They read the same records Rana had seen. The old failures Rana had seen. The new human trials. The plans for full hybrids. No one shouted. The shock was too deep for that. News spread faster than any official plan. Within a day, independent networks picked up fragments. They ran simple headlines. Humans as key hybrid material, deep gene use, secret projects far from Earth. Comment streams filled with anger and fear. In Lagos, a group of medical ethicists held an emergency meeting on a roof garden under light rain. In Berlin, a quiet, older activist wept in a community hall, remembering a past filled with terrible experiments. In Manila, Young students stayed awake all night, talking in small groups about consent, power, and what it meant to be useful to the galaxy. Some said, "They are using us." Others said, "This could save lives." Many said both in the same breath. The word that came up over and over was choice. Earth's council's still a messy, shared structure that argued a lot. Moved faster than it ever had in the past. It called for a direct session with the Heliox Council. No soft filters, no delay. "Come talk to us," they said. Now, Ambassador Lena Ortiz was in San Juan when the call came. She stood on a high walkway above the semi-oceanic district, watching early light touch the floating farms. The air was warm and wet. Small birds moved between sky gardens. She had spent her life learning how to stay calm when others shook. Lena read the leak summary on a secure handheld. Her jaw tightened, but her breath stayed slow. She knew the Continuum feared genetic collapse. She knew they had been honest about that much. But this scale of hidden work, this depth of human involvement, without clear consent from all, cut deep. Within hours, Lena was on a shuttle to a high-orbit relay station. From there, her signal would compress into a packet of light and vanish down a faster-than-light tunnel toward the Heliox Council Center. Dr. Signo. Malik Rowan joined her on the station. Malik was a quiet geneticist from Johannesburg, hair going silver at the sides, eyes sharp and tired. He had spent years sending models and notes to Continuum Labs. Now he held a copy of the leaked records on his own device. His shoulders were tense. They were always a little vague, Malik said, staring out at Earth's curve. But this is not just vague. This is hiding the scale. Lena did not answer right away. She watched clouds drift over the Atlantic. Then she said, softly, "We are about to see the rest, all of it, or I walk." When their link met the Heliox Council, the view on their screens shifted. The Council's main hall was wide and layered, built inside a hollowed-out asteroid lined with soft light. Bodies of many shapes hung in the air or rested on grown platforms. Colors, scents, and motions blended into a gentle hum of presence. In the center, a group of Heliox leaders formed a loose circle. Elya was there among them, frills pulled close to her head, a sign of shame and worry. Ambassador Lenis' image appeared before them. Clear and steady, Dr. Malik's smaller window floated beside her. "We have seen your hidden records," Lena said. Her voice was level, not loud. "We know you are using human cells in deep hybrid trials. You did not ask the people of Earth if this was an acceptable use of our bodies and minds." Elya shifted slightly, then moved forward. The translators carried her words with almost no delay. "You are right," Elya said. "We did not share the full scale. We feared you would turn away if you saw how much we had already failed, how desperate some sectors are. We thought partial truth would give you time to trust us slowly." Malik leaned closer to the pickup. "That is not trust," he said. "That is farming consent." A low wave of motion passed through the Heliox circle. Some species there had no faces, but their colors shifted in distress. Others closed eyes or folded limbs in. An elder of a gas giant species spoke next, their voice like soft, steady air through a flute. "Our intention was not harm," they said. "We have watched too many minds and bodies fade. We wanted to ask the universe a question about why life resists merging. Your species gave us the first different answer we have ever seen." Lena held on to that line. "Then show us the question," she said. "All of it. No more hiding, no more partial files." The council paused. Private links flashed between members. Then, slowly, access locks began to fall away. On Lena and Malik's screens, a new gateway marker appeared. A link to the deep archive. "Bring your minds with ours," Elya said softly. "Walk with us through our full past. If after that you wish us to burn every hybrid sample that holds human code, we will." Lena nodded once. "We will hold you to that," she said. Then she and Malik opened the archive. You are there with them, light and quiet, as millions of records unfold. They see the first awkward attempts at mixing life across species borders. They see the early joy when simple chemical blends worked and the slow, heavy sadness when actual embryos did not. They watch gene maps scroll by like long, glowing ladders. They see where different species line up, shared basics of life, and where they split, each forming its own strange style. They watch the same pattern play out over and over: excitement, careful design, first cell divisions, a brief, fragile order, then conflict, then drift, then stillness. Time in the archive flows in long, smooth sweeps. A single gesture pulls them across 300 years of attempts. Another slide takes them through 1,000. Each failure seems small in the frame of such long spans. Together, they feel heavy as a mountain. Malik's hand shakes once on the control band. Lena notices but does not point it out. Then the human era begins. At first, the files look like any other set. Simple test mixes, conservative models, but right away, the curves start to bend. In the records, Elya's voice appears as side notes, talking to her own team. Notice the restabilization event here. She says in one, the hybrid tissue drops signal strength, then forms a new pattern that uses instructions from both parent genomes. Malik slows the playback and zooms in. He sees tags near certain human gene regions, large regulatory clusters around brain growth, social bonding, and long-term planning. In the notes, Continuum scientists mark them again and again. They watch these clusters light up when conflict starts. They watch them push other genes toward new compatible timing. It is as if this system refuses to settle for nonsense, Elya says in another comment. If two instructions cannot both be true as they are, it shifts them until they form a sequence that does not tear the cell apart. She remembers nights as a child, lying in bed, trying to make sense of fights between adults, remembering how her mind would stay awake until it found some story that made the chaos bearable. Now she sees something like that same work happening in cells. The archive continues. Human mixes with species that live in high methane. Human mixes with species who see magnet fields. Human mixes with deep water swimmers from iron-rich seas. Most of these mixes still cannot reach full embryo stage. The distance between base chemistries is too far. But even when they fail differently. They fail after many rounds of trying to adjust. They form half-stable tissues that almost work. They stay alive longer than any other hybrids. It is like watching life refuse to give up on meaning. Malik speaks quietly, more to himself than to anyone else. This is not just repair, he says. These clusters are acting like narrative builders. They are taking broken instructions and forcing them into a kind of story, so the cell can keep going. Lena glances at him. Say that again, but in simpler words. He smiles a little, tired, but bright. Our genes are arguing and then making up, he says. The last section of the archive is marked as the most sensitive. The extended integration trials. Here, the continuum did more than mix cells in dishes. Under heavy rules and oversight, they began to grow near complete fetal forms, still without human consent in the way Earth would understand it. The sight of those half-formed bodies hits both Lena and Malik hard. Some look only slightly different from their parent species. Others are deeply new, extra limbs in good balance, new kinds of sensory organs. In the side notes, Elya's team always talks with care, almost kindness. They refer to each model with a gentle label. Never as stock or material, they record small acts, like playing patterns of music or movement near the growth pods, testing early responses. Still, the fact remains, these were created in secret. Lena closes her eyes for a moment. She breathes in, breathes out. Then she speaks to the council. You hid the scale, she says. You hid that you were this close to full children. This is not how partners act. A heavy quiet lies over the hall. Elya moves forward again, her body lines very still. You are right, she repeats. We carried shame with this work. We feared refusal and the death that might follow. We chose to risk your trust instead. That choice was wrong. Malik looks up from the data. His eyes are wet, but his voice is calm. I do not think you meant harm, he says. I also know that meaning well is not enough. If human biology holds something that can help you, then we must decide, together, how it is used, with clear words, with full consent, with open doors. Lena nods once. The people of Earth are already in the streets, she says. They are talking, angry, afraid, curious, hopeful. They need to hear you admit this. They need to see you stand in full light. The Heliox Council cannot look at all of Earth at once, but it can look at Lena and Malik. It can make a promise. Slowly, many members bow or fold in the symbol of acceptance. The elder from the gas giant world speaks again. We will open all records to your species, they say. We will pause all new hybrid attempts that involve you, and we will meet to write a new agreement in full view of your people and ours. So no child is ever grown as a secret between stars. Elya adds, her frills a soft, deep blue. We did not hunt for slaves or soldiers. We were asking the universe why it keeps falling apart when life meets life. Your cells are the first sign that there may be an answer. We wish to find it with you. Know over you. Malik lets out a breath he did not know he was holding. The leak that began in a quiet lab now stands in front of whole worlds. The outrage on Earth has brought a kind of clarity that slow talks never did. From here, a new path has to form. A path where humans learn what their own bodies can do. A path where the continuum accepts that even in deep crisis, there are lines that cannot be crossed in shadows. Somewhere in the outer labs, in a small growth pod that no one is touching today, cells carrying both human and Heliox genes continue to divide. Inside them, strange sequences keep trying to turn conflict into sense. Soon, a child will arrive who carries that work in every tiny part of her. But before that, Earth and the Heliox Continuum must decide what kind of story they are willing to live inside. And they will start by naming, in clear, simple words, the thing hidden in human DNA that keeps trying to turn chaos into meaning. The first time you see Sarah Lou, she is not doing anything big. She is in a warm playroom, inside the hybrid nursery, floating a little above the padded floor. Around her, the air is full of small things. Soft human balls covered in bright cloth. Heliox learning crystals that glow when touched. Thin rings that can twist into shapes. Slow bubbles that refuse to pop unless pressed in just the right way. Sarah Lou is very small. Her body is light brown, like her human mother's. Fine lines of faint, shifting color move under her skin, like Elias frills turned into soft patterns. Her eyes are large and dark, with a strange depth, as if a second color sits just behind the first. Her fingers have one extra joint. They bend with easy grace. Along her back, under the simple cloth suit she wears, small, flexible ridges run from neck to lower back. They can tighten and release like hidden muscles, letting her adjust to tiny changes in gravity. Right now, she is busy with 3 objects at once. In her left hand, she holds a human toy drum. With her right hand, she taps a Heliox learning crystal that plays a rising tone. With her feet, she kicks a small floating ball that chimes when it hits a room wall. To an adult ear, the noise sounds random at first. Tones, chimes. But after a few seconds, a pattern slides into place. The drum hits fall at regular gaps. The tone from the crystal climbs in a simple scale. The chime lands at the end of each small cycle, like a period in a sentence. No one taught her this. 2 caretakers float nearby, watching. One is human, a broad-shouldered woman from Recife named Anna. The other is a thin, gentle Heliox caregiver whose body looks like a long, jointed vine. With small hands at each bend, she has been doing this since before she could stand, Hannah says softly. She hears order in any sound. The Heliox caregiver changes color along their spine. A sign of agreement. She also hates unfinished patterns. They add, if someone starts a simple tune and stops too early, she gets very upset. Sarah Lou adds a new move to her game. She taps the crystal twice in quick, high notes, then waits. There is a gap, like a question. Anna, without thinking, answers by clapping her hands twice in the same rhythm. The sound is bright, with a faint Heliox trill under the human tone. She pulls herself gently along a wall rail to reach Anna, then presses the crystal into Anna's hand and taps the drum as if saying again, "Do that again." Already she is teaching others how to play by her rules. The hybrid nursery is a shared dream made real. It hangs like a small cluster of rooms at the edge of the research habitat. Lined with warm materials and soft shapes, gravity can be changed slightly from room to room. Lights adjust to match the comfort levels of different children. Here, human toys sit beside alien tools without any special labels. Soft books from Earth drift next to sensory orbs from gas giant worlds. Colors and scents and sounds mix, but gently, never at a painful level. This nursery did not exist when the leak happened. It was built after the first long talks, after the promise of a new agreement, after humans and the Continuum decided that any hybrid child would grow up as a person, not as an object of study. Sarah Lou is the first child to live here. Her genetic parents are a human musician from Buenos Aires, Luisa Alvarez, and a Heliox citizen named Sarat, who comes from a long line of pattern singers in Elya's culture. Both gave consent after months of talks, checks, and support from large, mixed teams. The embryo did not come from a lab working in shadows. It grew under the eyes of shared panels, on Earth and in the habitat. Every step was documented. Every sign of trouble was checked by people from both species. Still, there was fear. No one knew what a stable human Heliox hybrid would be like. Could a single body really carry such different ways of being? When Sarah Lou was born, the answer was not a grand speech. It was a small, wet cry, a rush of heartbeats, the slow, careful rhythm of breaths. Her body did not fall apart. Her cells did not lose their sense of what to build. Her organs took shape with a strange flowing grace, almost as if tiny arguments inside them were being settled before they caused harm. Now she is 3 standard years old. Old enough to speak short sentences in 2 trade tongues and a little of her mother's Spanish. Old enough to run in low gravity, to swim in soft gel pools, to grab Elya's frills and pull herself onto the elder's shoulders with bright joy. Many teams watch her, but they do not watch with cold eyes. They watch like anxious aunts and uncles, hearts full of worry and hope. You stay close, almost like a third shadow at her side. You see the way she moves in mixed company. In the nursery common room, a small group has gathered. 2 human researchers, Elya, a gas giant envoy in a mobile tank, and a crustacean-like engineer from a dry, rocky world. They are trying to discuss a problem. A new hybrid trial between 2 non-human species has hit a strange wall. The cells show more promise than past tries, but still keep locking into unhelpful loops. The adults talk in half-finished phrases. It starts a heart layout, then flips. The timing near the neural crest. We could shut down half the Sarah Lou does not understand the full science. She understands something else. She watches their faces, their color shifts, the way their limbs twitch with stress. Then she floats to the center of the room, spreading her arms as if gathering all their scattered words. She grabs 3 toys, a red ball, a blue ring, and a small helix-shaped charm. She presses the red ball into Isla's hands. "Heart," she says. She hangs the helix charm from a rail near the gas giant envoy's tank. "Think stuff," she says, for neural tissue. She then takes the blue ring and slips it back and forth between the two, saying, "Wait, now. Wait, now." Her voice rises and falls on the second now, making a tiny melody. At first, the adults just smile, thinking it is cute. Then Malik, who is visiting from Earth this week, frowns with interest. "Do that again, Sarah," he says. "Same way." She does. Red ball to Elya. Wait, now. Blue ring to the helix. Wait, now. Back and forth, always with the same simple rhythm. Malik looks at the simulation on his tablet. He notes the timing of Sarah's little chant. It matches almost exactly the delay they had tried in a failed model last month. In those runs, heart tissue and neural tissue argued over the same growth window. Neither got what it needed. What if we don't overlap them at all? Malik says slowly. What if we give each full control in turns like she's, showing instead of trying to let them share? The crustacean engineer clicks their back limbs in thought. A strict alternation schedule, they say. One system, active, the other resting. Then swap. Elya's frills ripple in a way. That means surprise. We assumed a blend would be gentler, she says, but maybe a clear story of first this. Then that is easier for mixed cells to follow. Sarah Lou does not know that she has just given a team of experts a new idea. She only knows that the adults have stopped frowning. She drops the ring, pushes off a wall, and zooms toward the food nook, laughing. This is how her strange ability shows up. In small, playful moves that pull scattered thoughts into a simple line. Later that week, another scene unfolds in the nursery. 2 groups of researchers have been arguing for days. The human side wants stricter limits on hybrid trials, fewer risk steps, more waiting between stages. The continuum side worries that too much delay will kill whole lines before help arrives. They are tired. Their words come out hard. "We cannot just rush because you are afraid of time," says a young doctor from Cairo, "and we cannot stand still because your past is full of rightful fear," says a Heliox geneticist. Colors flickering in frustration, Sarah Lou sits at a small table in the corner, playing with shaped tiles. She has been listening to the tone more than the words. She looks up, sees the anger, and frowns. Then she calls out, "Game?" No one hears at first. She pushes herself closer. "Game," she says again. Louder. "You forget the game. We need the 3-round game." That phrase catches Elya's attention. "What 3-round game, little star?" Elya asks gently. Sarah Lou taps the table. 3 times. "First talk afraid," she says. "Then talk safe. Then talk both." She looks around with serious eyes. You only do the first part. It is not fun. The idea is so simple that it slips past their defenses. Sarah does not say, hold separate meetings or use formal models. She frames it as a child's turn-based game. Malik, who has stayed on after the last meeting, smiles slowly. We could try it, he says. One round where everyone speaks only from fear. No counter-arguments. Just this scares me because then a round of pure hope. This excites me because then a third round where we try to build plans that answer both lists. Elya brightens, colors turning a soft gold green, a structured discourse pattern, she says, shaped like a simple story with beginning, middle, and change point. The young doctor from Cairo lets out a breath. I can do that, she says. I cannot do more hidden steps, but I can do a 3-round game. They agree to try. The next day, they gather in a side room with Sarah Lou sitting on Malik's lap. They follow her rules. First round, fear. Second round, hope. Third round, build. By the end of the session, they have made a new draft for hybrid trial rules. It is stricter than the old plan, looser than the most fearful voices wanted, and clear enough that everyone can explain it in simple words. Sarah Lou feels the tension in the room ease and nods, satisfied. Better, she says. Now the story can keep going.